Today, I want to talk about the astrology for February 2026. There's some pretty big transits this month, especially the solar eclipse taking place in Aquarius. And I know it's been a while since I've posted, so I wanted to make it up to you by giving you a more personal reading. So I'll go through the transits of Saturn, Jupiter, and this eclipse for your ascendant specifically that goes beyond just this month. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Christina. I make videos about Vedic astrology using the Sidereal zodiac. And I make resources like this Transit in the Sky book for 2026, which is your personal calendar to the sidereal sky with astrological insights and major conjunctions. I'll leave a link down below if you're interested. Now, if you're not new, thank you so much for being here. Welcome back. Now, let's get into the overview of the month. So we begin the month with Sun, Mars, Mercury, and Venus all in sidereal Capricorn. And ruled by Saturn, Capricorn deals with things like responsibility and ambition and structure. It's the 10th sign, so it's connected to the 10th house of career and reputation. This is Earth and Artha energy. It's all about material pursuits, wealth, resources, working, effort, and having tangible results. Now, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So this is strengthening our drive and focus, while Sun, despite being an enemy of Saturn, emphasizes a kind of karmic duty. So this is a really strong placement for leadership, for transforming your goals into reality. It also indicates this shift from the visionary fire energy of Sagittarius towards a more action-oriented and getting results kind of energy of Capricorn. Now, most importantly, though, on February 1st, we have a full moon. So this is really a culmination event that's involving your Cancer Capricorn phases, and it's a time to celebrate and reflect on the last 2 weeks. Look at your successes and your failures and figure out what the next best steps would be. Now, this upcoming solar eclipse will be the new lunar cycle in Aquarius, but it won't be a time of new beginnings, at least not at first. So now Mercury will enter into Aquarius on the 3rd of February and will go retrograde later this month on the 26th. So this is a time to think outside the box, but also slow down and not rush your decisions. Aquarius is a sign of individuality through community. And it's about what you bring to the table and not necessarily being swayed by public opinion. Now, if your mind feels scattered or things just seem kind of off during this time, it's a really great time to just take a step back and reflect before you act. Give yourself that space to see things clearly, especially when the other planets start to move into Aquarius and we have that big solar eclipse. Now, not traditionally studied in Vedic, but Uranus turns direct in Taurus, and this is also going to take place on the 3rd of February. So at this time, you may start to feel more movement in that area of life where Taurus is, where things may have felt previously stuck or just kind of moving slowly. And Uranus as a planet is about breakthroughs and is rebellious. And these things will be more active now because when a planet is retrograde, it's really a more of a passive time. So trust yourself, let go of any self-doubt you have right now. And that's going to allow you to welcome any new inspiration and progress that's on the horizon now that Uranus is direct. Now, Venus is our karaka of relationships, and she's going to move into Aquarius on February 5th, and this is going to support connection with others, especially through things like collaboration, having empathy, sharing values with others. And there is this lesson in this transit for a deeper understanding and a closeness, which can bring harmony. That's what Venus is all about. She is the peacekeeper. Now, Mars is spending most of the month in Capricorn with Pluto, which I talk about in my January video. So make sure you check that out if you haven't watched it yet. And Mars is going to move into Aquarius on the 23rd, so a little bit later in the month. And this transit has the potential to give you the courage to stand up for what truly matters and to take action with purpose, especially when it benefits both you and those around you. So this is more about focusing and contributing to what matters beyond self-satisfaction. Aquarius is the rebel, and when the fiery energies of Mars and Sun are here, the motivation to rebel is increased at this time. Now, we have a new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius on February 17th, which is a really powerful time to reset your goals, especially those that are connected to community, to your friendships, and really just to your vision for the future. Solar eclipses are really strong and karmic. It's a time that propels you forward on whatever path that you are currently on. But there is usually something that gets left behind in the process, right? It gets eclipsed out. So on the actual eclipse day, take it easy. Try to listen for any messages that want to come through. And it's really just generally advised not to start anything new or try to force something to happen. Even though it is technically a new moon, we want to wait till a few days after the eclipse energy has subsided. So whatever axis this alignment is activating for you, where your Rahu and Ketu are, these are going to be discussed in your personal readings in just a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into these readings. Make sure to find your ascendant in the jump links below. And remember, this is for your sidereal placements. If you want an even more personalized reading based on your actual chart, be sure to check out my chart reading services in my website. I'll leave the link below. Aries Ascendant, Jupiter has been in Gemini, your third house, and he's been retrograde. So Jupiter rules your ninth and 12th houses. And so this is going to bring higher learning, themes around beliefs and expenses and solitude into your third house of courage, communication, and daily desires. Now, with Jupiter here, you may feel more enthusiasm and energy overall, and his aspect to your 7th, 9th, and 11th house supports your relationships and your beliefs and your friendships. So since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more of your attention, and Jupiter will be retrograde for the next 2 months, but then he'll turn direct and he'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any of that fulfillment or extra energy that Jupiter has brought so far. And by the end of the year, when Jupiter moves into your 4th house, where he's exalted in Cancer, you can look forward to expansion and abundance and deeper emotional connection. Now, we have an eclipse this month in your 11-5 axis. So this is Rahu in Aquarius in your 11th house, Ketu and Leo in your 5th house. And so this solar eclipse is lighting up your axis of truth between your creativity and your long-term goals. Now, Ketu in your 5th house is helping you let go of old desires for validation or being in the spotlight, while Rahu in your 11th house is pushing you toward new goals and towards joining new communities and groups and having a better sense of where you invest your energy. Now, if you've struggled to release any ego-driven expression at this time, this eclipse is going to help you move on and see your role in the collective more clearly. Now, Saturn is direct in your 12th house of Pisces, and so Saturn rules your 10th and 11th houses. So this is going to bring responsibility and long-term goals into your 12th house of solitude and rest. Now, when Saturn here, you may feel more introspective and you may want to pull back from those external pressures. And his aspect to your 2nd, 6th, and 9th houses can make you rethink your spending habits, your work routines, and even your worldview. So Saturn is direct now, So his influence is growing stronger over the next few months. So use this time to stay true to your values, your truth, and your dharma. And what you learn now about rest, boundaries, and even closure will build that foundation and will help you prepare for the big shift in identity when Saturn moves into your first house next year. Taurus Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your second house. Jupiter rules your 8th and 11th houses. So this is bringing transformation and themes of friendship into your house of wealth, values, and independence. And Jupiter here gives you confidence and security with your resources. He aspects your 6th, 8th, and 10th houses. So this is supporting your health, your investments, and your career. Now, since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more attention, and he'll be retrograde for the next 2 months, but then he'll turn direct, still be in Gemini. So make sure to make the most of any fulfillment or extra energy that you've experienced with this transit so far. And then by the end of the year, Jupiter is going to move into Cancer, your 3rd house, where he's exalted. So you can look forward to more daily satisfaction with this transit. Now, there'll be an eclipse this month in your 10-4 axis. And so this is your 10th house of Aquarius, where Rahu is, and then K2 will be in your 4th house of Leo. And so this eclipse is really highlighting the tension between your public and your private spaces. And so K2 in the 4th house is going to help you dissolve any old attachments to things like things that are comforting and old family expectations or emotional security that's limiting your growth. And then Rahu in your 10th house is going to push you forward professionally. It's going to help you realign with your karmic direction in the world. And so during this eclipse, you may come across this new awareness. This new awareness may emerge about how your inner life must evolve in order to support the reputation that you're building. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces in your 11th house, and Saturn rules your 9th and 10th houses. So this is bringing themes of belief and career into your house of goals and achievement. Now, Saturn's presence brings realism, accountability, responsibility to your long-term aspirations. And his aspect on your 1st, 5th, and 8th houses restricts self-expression, creative pursuits, and even your emotional attachments. And since Saturn has been direct, his influence is going to increase over the next several months before he ends up turning retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to just act in accordance with your truth, with your values, with your dharma, and the lessons that you learn now about community and ambition. This will set the foundation for any emotional withdrawal or rest that you experience when Saturn transits your 12th house next year. Gemini Ascendant, Jupiter has been in your 1st house and he's still retrograde, and Jupiter rules your 7th and 10th houses. So this is bringing themes of relationship and commitment and business and career into your 1st house of self. And Jupiter here brings contentment and optimism. So it's a really great transit. And his aspect onto your 5th, 7th, and 11th house supports your creativity, your relationships, your friendships, all of these things. And since Jupiter is retrograde, this just means that these areas may have needed a bit more of your attention, and he'll still be retrograde for the next 2 months, but then he'll turn direct, and then he'll continue to be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any abundance and fortune that you've experienced so far with this transit. And then later this year, Jupiter is going to move into your 2nd house of Cancer, where he's exalted. And this can bring abundance and expansion with your finances and your resources. So this is big time growth. Now, this month we have a solar eclipse on your 9-3 axis. So this means we've got Rahu in your 9th house of Aquarius. We've got Leo in your 3rd house, or K2 in your 3rd house of Leo. And this is your axis of education and learning and understanding. So this solar eclipse is activating those things. It's activating your learning, your belief systems, and just how knowledge is shared and communicated. Now, K2 is in the third house, releasing any outdated thinking patterns, your mental habits, or just even communication styles that no longer serve your growth. While Rahu in the ninth house is going to propel you towards expanding your understanding and maybe bringing in some new philosophies and giving you a broader vision of what you perceive as the truth. Now, insight could come from this eclipse that helps you reframe how you learn, how you teach, and how you trust your intellectual path. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces, your 10th house, and Saturn rules your 8th and ninth houses. So, this is bringing themes of transformation and belief into your house of career and public reputation. And Saturn's presence really brings accountability and maturity into your professional life. His aspect on your 12th, 4th, and 7th houses is going to restrict your rest, your emotional comfort, and your relationship dynamics. And since Saturn has been direct, his influence will increase over the next several months before he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So just use this time to act in accordance with your truth and your personal dharma. And the lessons that you learn now about authority and responsibility will help set the foundation for redefining your goals and your social networks when Saturn transits your 11th house next year. And that's usually a very good transit. Cancer Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your 12th house. And so Jupiter rules your 6th and ninth houses. So this is bringing themes of health and work and service and higher learning beliefs, those sorts of things, into your house of expenses and solitude. Now, Jupiter in this transit in this house brings healing and peace. And his aspect onto your 4th, 6th, 8th house is really supporting your home, your health, and even your partner's resources. So since Jupiter is a retrograde, these areas may need a little bit more attention than usual, but Jupiter will turn direct in 2 months. He'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any abundance and peace that you've experienced so far. And at the end of the year, Jupiter is going to enter into your first house, which is going to bring immense growth and abundance into your entire life experience, to yourself and identity. So that's something to look forward to. Now, this month we have an eclipse on your 8-2 axis. We've got Rahu in your 8th house of Aquarius. We've got K2 in your 2nd house of Leo. And so this eclipse is going to bring some karmic shifts around things like security and resources and trust. And K2 is in the 2nd house, dissolving any old attachments that you have around money, around self-worth that's tied to any material stability. And then Rahu in the 8th house is going to propel you towards deeper healing and shared resources and even some emotional transformation. Now, during this eclipse, you may get some new information that surfaces that will help you redefine what true security means for you and how to navigate financial and emotional independence. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces. This is your 9th house, and Saturn rules your 7th and 8th houses. So this is bringing themes of partnership and vulnerability into your house of beliefs and higher learning. And then Saturn's presence always brings some kind of discipline, pressure, realism to that house. In this case, this is to your worldview and your beliefs. His aspect on your 11th, 3rd, and 6th houses is going to restrict social commitments, communications, and just your daily work habits. Now, since Saturn has been direct, his influence is going to increase over the next several months before he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So just use this time to act in accordance with your truth and your dharma, your values, and the lessons that you learn now about faith and truth will set the foundation for more career responsibilities when Saturn transits your 10th house next year. Leo Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your 11th house, and Jupiter rules your 5th and 8th houses. So this is bringing creativity, children, transformation, shared resources, all of these things into your house of gains and goals and social circles. Now, Jupiter here brings satisfaction and a feeling of achievement and actual achievement as well. So his aspect on your 3rd, 5th, and 7th houses is going to support your courage, going to support your creativity and relationships. Now, since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas of life may have needed a bit more attention, and he will go direct in about 2 months, but he'll still be in Gemini. So use this time to enjoy any abundance and fortune that you've experienced so far with this transit. And by the end of the year, you may notice a shift from the material to the spiritual as Jupiter enters your 12th house of Cancer, where he's exalted. Now, we have an eclipse this month on your 7-1 axis. So this is Rahu in Aquarius in your 7th house, K2 in Leo in your 1st house. And so this solar eclipse is going to be deeply personal. It's going to help reshape how you define yourself in relation to others in your relationships. And K2 is in the 1st house. He's helping you release any outdated identity patterns or ego attachments or self-images that have limited your authentic connections. And then you've got Rahu in the 7th house. He's going to propel you towards karmic relationships and partnerships. This could be romantic or business that reflect who you are becoming. So the mind could receive some insights during this eclipse that are about balance and compromise and the role that relationships play in your growth, in your evolution. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces. This is your 8th house, and Saturn rules your 6th and 7th houses. And so this is bringing themes of service and partnership into your house of transformation and shared resources. So Saturn's presence really brings some pressure and emotional accountability and some deep psychological feelings with this transit. And his aspect on your 10th, 2nd, and 5th houses is going to restrict some career ambition, maybe even some financial security and your creative expression. Now, since Saturn has been direct, his influence will increase over the next several months before he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to act in accordance with your truth, your values, your dharma, and the lessons that you learn now about trust and attachment will help set the foundation for the restructuring of your beliefs and higher learning when Saturn transits your 9th house next year. Virgo Ascendant, Jupiter is in Gemini, your 10th house, and he's retrograde, and Jupiter rules your 4th and 7th houses. So this brings emotions, home, mother, relationship themes all into your house of career and public reputation. So Jupiter here is actually bringing validation and fulfillment with this transit. And his aspect on your 2nd, 4th, and 6th house is supporting your finances, your home life, those emotional connections, and your health. And since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need a bit more of your attention, and Jupiter will be retrograde for 2 more months, but then he'll turn direct and he'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to make use of any abundance and good fortune that you've experienced so far. Enjoy those things. And by the end of the year, when Jupiter moves into your 11th house, you can look forward to even more gains and abundance. Now we have an eclipse on your 6-12 axis. So this is Rahu in the 6th house of Aquarius and K2 in the 12th house of Leo. And so this eclipse is activating your axis of service and surrender, trust and control. Now, K2 in the 12th house is dissolving any old unconscious fears, avoidance patterns, any kind of escapist tendencies that have weakened your sense of trust. Now, Rahu in the 6th house is opposite. It's going to propel you towards more practical responsibility, healthier routines and daily routines, and having more of a conscious effort. Now, during this eclipse, you may come across a new understanding that emerges around how discipline and trust in your daily life really support long-term healing for you. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces. This is your seventh house. Saturn has been there for quite some time, but he turned direct recently. And Saturn rules your fifth and sixth houses. So, this is bringing themes of creativity and responsibility into your house of committed relationships. Now, Saturn's presence, it brings some seriousness and long-term thinking, right? Saturn's about longevity into your partnerships. And his aspect on your ninth, your first, and your fourth house is going to restrict your belief systems, your self-direction, any kind of emotional comfort that you rely on. And since Saturn has been direct, his influence will increase over the next several months before he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to act in accordance with your truth, with your dharma, with your values, and the lessons that you learn now about boundaries and compromise are going to help set the foundation for the emotional transformations when Saturn transits your eighth house next year. Libra Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini. This is your ninth house, and Jupiter rules your third and sixth houses. So this is bringing themes of courage and communication, siblings, health, and work into your house of beliefs and good fortune. Now, Jupiter here brings an understanding and optimism in this transit, and his aspect on your first, third, and fifth houses are going to support your health, your daily desires, your mental energy. And since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more of your attention, and he'll be retrograde for another 2 months. Then he turns direct. He'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any abundance and good fortune that you've experienced with this transit thus far. And then by the end of the year, when Jupiter moves into your 10th house, he'll be exalted in Cancer. So you can look forward to some big blessings in your career. This month, we have a solar eclipse on your 5-11 axis. So this is Rahu in your 5th house of Aquarius, Ketu in your 11th house of Leo. And this is your axis of truth. The solar eclipse is going to recalibrate how you express yourself versus how you contribute to the world. Now, K2 in the 11th house is helping you to release outdated goals, social groups, social responsibilities, and identities that are just no longer reflecting your truth. While Rahu is the opposite, he's in the 5th house, propelling you toward more authentic self-expression, creativity, experiencing joy and happiness. And so during this eclipse, an insight could arise that helps you reclaim your personal truth without abandoning your role in the collective. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces in your 6th house. He's been in Pisces for quite some time. He just recently turned direct. And Saturn rules your 4th and 5th houses. So this is bringing themes of emotional connection and creativity into your house of work and health. Now, Saturn's presence brings pressure and discipline and structure to your daily routines. And his aspect on your 8th, 12th, and 3rd houses is going to restrict. It's going to restrict any emotional dependency or escapist tendencies, and even just mental capacity overall, any distractions. It's going to restrict these things. And since Saturn has been direct, his influence will increase over the next few months until he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. But until then, use this time to just act in accordance with your truth, with your dharma, with your values. And then the lessons that you learn now about consistency and effort are going to set the foundation for relationship commitments when Saturn transits your 7th house next year. Scorpio Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your 8th house, and Jupiter rules your 2nd and 5th house. So this is bringing themes of money, family, romance, creativity, children into your house of transformation. And Jupiter here is bringing freedom and relief from old fears and attachments. His aspect on your 12th, 2nd, and 4th houses supports your spiritual growth, your finances, your home life. And since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more of your attention. Jupiter will be retrograde for another 2 months, but then he turns direct. He'll still be in Gemini. So use this time to enjoy any abundance and good fortune that you've experienced so far. And then by the end of the year, when Jupiter moves into your 9th house of Cancer, where he's exalted, you can look forward to even more luck and abundance and expansion. Now we have an eclipse this month on your 4-10 axis. And so this is Rahu in your 4th house of Aquarius, Ketu in your 10th house of Leo. And this eclipse is bringing a karmic movement between your home life and career, your personal and your public. K2 is in the 10th house, helping to dissolve any outdated definitions that you may have around success or authority or even just your public image. And then we've got the opposite with Rahu in the 4th house, propelling you towards emotional grounding and having that inner security and that deeper sense of belonging. And so during this eclipse, a new awareness may help you understand that true reputation is built from that internal source and stability rather than external validation. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces in your 5th house. He's been in Pisces for quite some time. He recently turned direct. And Saturn rules your 3rd and 4th houses. So bringing themes of effort, emotional grounding into your house of creativity and expression. And Saturn's presence brings restraint, it brings responsibility, and it puts this into your house of romance and personal joy. Now, his aspect on your 7th, 11th, and 2nd house is going to restrict relationships, your social goals, and even your financial priorities at this time. And since Saturn turned direct, his influence will increase over the next few months before he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to act in accordance with your truth, your values, your dharma, and then the lessons that you learn now about self-expression will set the foundation for the work discipline that comes when Saturn transits your 6th house next year. Sagittarius Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your 7th house, and Jupiter rules your 1st and 4th house. So this is bringing themes of identity, self, home, emotional connections into your house of relationships. And so Jupiter here is bringing happiness and enthusiasm with this transit. His aspect on your 11th, 1st, and 3rd houses is supporting your friendships, your personal experiences, and your overall confidence. Now, since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more of your attention, and he'll be retrograde for another 2 months. But then he turns direct, and he'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any abundance and harmony that you've experienced so far with this transit. And then by the end of the year, when Jupiter moves into your 8th house, you can look forward to more freedom and some relief. Now we have an eclipse on your 3-9 axis this month, and this is Rahu in your 3rd house of Aquarius, Ketu in your 9th house of Leo. And this solar eclipse is going to really reshape how you process and share knowledge. K2 is in the 9th house. It's helping you to release any rigid beliefs or dogma or teachings that are just no longer aligned with your current lived experience. And then you've got Rahu in the 3rd house doing the opposite. He's going to propel you towards curiosity and skill building and having that direct communication and engagement with information. So during this eclipse, you may get an insight or a download that supports a more flexible and personal relationship with learning and truth. Now, Saturn is direct in your 4th house of Pisces. Saturn has been in Pisces for quite some time, and he recently turned direct. And Saturn rules your 2nd and 3rd houses. So this is bringing themes of security and effort into your house of home and emotional security and foundation. Now, Saturn's presence brings pressure, responsibility, and structure to your family matters. His aspect on your 6th, 10th, and 1st house is going to restrict work habits. It's going to restrict your career direction and even personal impulses. Now, since Saturn has been direct, his influence is increasing over the next few months, but then he'll turn retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to act in accordance with your values, with your dharma, with your truth. And then the lessons that you learn now about having that inner stability will set the foundation for creative responsibility when Saturn transits your 5th house next year. Capricorn Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your 6th house, and Jupiter rules your 3rd and 12th houses. So this is going to bring courage and solitude into your house of health and healing. Now, Jupiter here brings efficiency and motivation with this transit. His aspect on your 10th, your 12th, and your 2nd house is supporting your career, your spiritual goals, and your finances. And since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more of your attention, and Jupiter will be retrograde for the next 2 months, but then he'll turn direct. He'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any ease and enjoyment that you've experienced with this transit so far. And then by the end of the year, Jupiter is going to move into your 7th house of Cancer, where he's exalted. And this is where you can look forward to more growth and abundance in your relationships. Now we have an eclipse this month of February in your 2-8 axis. And so this is Rahu in your 2nd house of Aquarius, Ketu in your 8th house of Leo. And this eclipse is going to initiate a karmic change around your attachments, around your values and shared resources. Ketu is in your 8th house, dissolving fear-based attachments, any financial entanglements or emotional dependencies you may have. While Rahu is doing the opposite. He's in the 2nd house, propelling you towards rebuilding your self-worth and your financial stability and having clearer goals and priorities. And during this eclipse, you may come across a new understanding that emerges about how your values shape both your material and your emotional security. Now, Saturn is direct in Pisces in your 3rd house. Saturn has been in Pisces for quite some time, and he recently turned direct. Now, Saturn rules your 1st and 2nd houses, and so this is going to bring themes of identity and security into your house of communication, effort, your daily desires. And then Saturn's presence brings pressure, right? It brings discipline and a seriousness to how you think and speak. And his aspect on your 5th, 9th, and 12th houses is going to restrict your creativity, your belief systems, and how you're able to rest. Now, since Saturn has been direct, his influence will increase over the next several months before he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to really live in accordance to your values and your dharma and your personal truth. Now, the lessons that you learn about effort and communication now during this transit will help set the foundation for that emotional responsibility that will take place when Saturn transits your 4th house next year. Aquarius Ascendant, Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini in your 5th house, and Jupiter rules your 2nd and 11th house. So this is bringing wealth, family gains, and friendships, all of these themes into your house of creativity, children, intelligence, romance even. And Jupiter here really brings enjoyment and abundance into your life. His aspect on your 9th, 11th, and 1st house is supporting your fortune, your friendships, and your sense of self. Now, since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need a bit more of your attention, and he'll be retrograde for another 2 months, but then he turns direct and he'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any abundance and excitement or enjoyment that you've experienced so far. And then by the end of the year, when Jupiter moves into your 6th house of Cancer, where he's exalted, you can look forward to more growth and abundance in your health. Now, this month in February, we have an eclipse on your 1-7 axis. And so this solar eclipse is directly impacting your sense of self and partnerships. We've got Rahu in your first house of Aquarius, and then we've got K2 in your seventh house of Leo. K2 in the seventh house is going to help you release any outdated relationship patterns or compromises or expectations that have kept you stuck, or even old contracts. And then Rahu is doing the opposite. It's in the first house. It's going to propel you towards self-defining goals and then having more personal alignment. And so during this eclipse, you may have an insight that comes that helps you understand how honoring yourself really helps reshape the quality of your relationships. This is the axis of the mirror, the 1-7 axis of self and others. Now, Saturn is direct in your second house of Pisces. Saturn has been in Pisces for quite some time, but he recently turned direct, and Saturn rules your 12th and first house. So this is bringing themes of release and identity into your house of finances and values and self-worth. Now, Saturn's presence brings surrealism and discipline to money management and self-worth. And his aspect on your 4th, 8th, and 11th houses restricts emotional spending, shared resources, and long-term goals. Now, since Saturn has been direct, his influence is going to increase over the next several months before turning retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to really live in accordance with your values and your dharma. And the lessons that you learn about security and values now will help set the foundation for more focused communications and daily desires when Saturn transits your 3rd house next year. Pisces Ascendant Jupiter has been in Gemini, retrograde in your 4th house, and Jupiter rules your 1st and 10th house. So this is bringing themes of identity, health, career, and reputation into your house of home and emotional connection. Now, Jupiter here brings comfort and security. His aspect on your 8th, 10th, and 12th houses supports your investments, your career, and your spiritual goals. And since Jupiter is retrograde, these areas may need more of your attention and will so for the next 2 months. But then Jupiter will turn direct and he'll still be in Gemini. So be sure to enjoy any strength and satisfaction that you've experienced so far by the end of this year. When Jupiter moves into your 5th house, you can look forward to even more abundance and optimism in your creativity. Now we have an eclipse this month, a solar eclipse on your 12-6 axis. And so this is Rahu in your 12th house of Aquarius, K2 in your 6th house of Leo. This is your axis of trust. Now the eclipse activates surrender and responsibility. K2 is in your 6th house. This is helping to dissolve any unhealthy work habits, conflicts, or maybe any micromanaging areas of your life, control-driven routines, those sorts of things. And then Rahu is the opposite. It's in your 12th house, propelling you towards a deeper spiritual trust and learning how to rest and have that inner awareness. Now, new information could come through during this eclipse that helps you understand when to act and when to release, when to let go. And this will strengthen your trust in the unfolding path that you're on. Now, Saturn is direct in your 1st house of Pisces, and Saturn has been in Pisces for quite some time, but he recently turned direct. And so Saturn rules your 11th and 12th houses. This is bringing themes of aspiration and solitude into your house of self and identity. So Saturn's presence is bringing introspection and self-evaluation. And his aspects onto your 1st, 7th, and 10th houses is restricting irresponsibility and restricting relationships and even career. Since Saturn has been direct, his influence will increase over the next several months until he turns retrograde again at the end of the year. So use this time to just act in accordance with your truth, with your dharma, and your values. And then the lessons that you learn now about yourself will set the foundation for your quest for financial security and family when Saturn transits your second house next year.